April 1945. Berlin is collapsing, the Third Reich is burning to the ground, Soviet forces are closing in from every direction as Adolf Hitler disappears underground into the Führer bunker beneath the city. Days later, the world is told Hitler is dead, suicide, bunker, case closed. But what if that wasn't the end of the story? What if one of the most hunted men in history escaped Europe entirely and vanished into South America through a secret network built specifically for high-ranking Nazis? I just finished watching the History Channel series Hunting Hitler, and whether you agree with the conclusions or not, one thing becomes very clear. There were absolutely organized escape routes out of Europe after World War II. Not conspiracy theory, not internet mythology. Historical fact. After the war, thousands of Nazis escaped Europe through clandestine escape networks known as the Ratlines. These routes moved former SS officers, intelligence personnel, scientists, and political figures into Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil. Some traveled through Italy, some through Spain. Many received false identities and documents, and many were protected because the post-war world was rapidly shifting into the Cold War. This isn't speculation. We know many of these men escaped because they were eventually found. Adolf Eichmann escaped to Argentina before eventually being captured by Israeli intelligence. Josef Mengele disappeared into South America for decades. Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Lyon, openly lived in Bolivia. So when people immediately dismiss the idea that senior Nazis escaped Europe, that part isn't even debated anymore. They did. The real question is whether Hitler himself was among them. Now, to be clear, most historians still believe Hitler died in Berlin in April of 1945. There is substantial evidence supporting that conclusion, especially dental evidence and witness testimony from inside the bunker. But here's where things get strange. The Soviet investigation was chaotic. Some evidence disappeared. Conflicting statements came from Soviet officials themselves. Even Joseph Stalin reportedly hinted to Allied leaders that Hitler may have escaped, and then intelligence agencies spent years tracking alleged sightings of Hitler in South America after the war officially ended. Now, intelligence agencies investigate thousands of rumors. That alone proves nothing, but it does prove something important. Governments themselves were uncertain enough to keep looking. Much of the escape theory centers around Argentina under Juan Perón. During and after World War II, Argentina became a destination for thousands of German immigrants and former Nazis. Researchers and investigators have pointed to isolated estates in Patagonia, German-speaking enclaves, suspicious financial networks, submarine rumors, and alleged eyewitness sightings that persisted for years. Some theories claim German U-boats transported Nazi officials across the Atlantic after the war. Others point to declassified FBI and CIA files documenting reports connected to Hitler sightings years later. Again, none of this conclusively proves Hitler survived, but it does reveal how murky the post-war world actually was. And honestly, the bigger story may not even be Hitler. The bigger story is the global network that existed after the war. Money, intelligence agencies, escape pipelines, industrial interests, safe houses, new identities, financial protection systems. Because after World War II, intelligence agencies recruited former Nazis, scientists were quietly relocated into Western programs, financial networks survived, and geopolitical alliances shifted almost overnight as the Cold War began. The line between justice, survival, and strategic advantage became incredibly blurred. And once you start studying that period of history, you realize the world behind the scenes was far stranger and far more complicated than the simplified version most people grew up hearing. Did Hitler escape? Maybe not. But the fact that the question still exists 80 years later tells you something important about war, intelligence operations, collapsing empires, and the fog that surrounds the end of major regimes. Because sometimes the official story is only part of the story.